Hey, the Monday Movie Club. I am Frank Gaffney. I don't know why that's important. This week, Joel chose Streets of Fire from 1984. And there he is. Joel, no Streets of Fire thing behind you?
No, the Blu-ray discs right here.
It is? Could you light it on fire?
No.
Annie King in the kitchen. And look, we have a new guest. It's not Cringer at all. It's Ruby Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yes. And Mark Wotitzgartner. Joel, why Streets of Fire?
Because it has something for everyone.
Yes, exactly. You're gonna cling on to something in the movie and
Cling on.
Yes. I saw the movie way back when it came out, and it was
And in 1984, you were how old?
In 1984, I was 14 or 15. So
well, that explains so much.
Yeah, no, it's an 80s kid movie to that extent, in that it's very it's got comic book aspects to it, it's got Western aspects to it, it's got musical aspects to it.
Was it rated R?
No,
PG.
Yeah.
So you could see it, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was PG?
No, I can see where Joel would like this movie. I mean, Walter Hill writing and directing it. Jim Steinman songs.
Yep. So
little futuristic, kind of trying to be something. Here's the plot. A mercenary is hired to rescue his ex-girlfriend, a singer who has been kidnapped by a motorcycle gang.
Wait, can I interrupt? Have you ever heard Walter Hill's description of the film?
No.
Of the plot? Is basically, I'm going to share it. He basically said that this movie is about the Queen of the Hop being kidnapped by the leader of the pack and rescued by Soldier Boy.
With none of those songs playing in the background.
Correct. Well, originally they were hoping to have that was the plan, but the studio kind of said, soundtracks are big. We need original songs. So,
and that was mistake number one.
Anyway,
okay, so just my thoughts while watching it. We opened the film with the round of wait your turn fighting, which we all love. All right. Okay, he's dead. My turn. And is that the diner they used for Back to the Future? It looked like it might be. But it was also Universal, right? So
yes, it was shot on the Universal backlot, but the diner was built specifically for this movie. I forget what they said.
Yes, and then Back to the Future was the next year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It may have still been there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it is. Rick Moranis, good Lord. No one in this history of cinema was so seriously miscast in a movie as him. Him trying to be a rough, mean guy does not work. We're not taking no skirt along. Oh, good Lord. And I thought it was the future, but it's the 1950s in the future, something like that. Amy Madigan, typical tough girl, lesbian. And who's the Eddie Murphy type guy? The cop? Who's the actor? No, when they first, I'm the guy who was in the band. He was trying to be funny. Anyway.
Oh, one of them was Bubba from Forrest Gump, but
Michael
T. Williamson, yeah.
Three backup singers were
Robert Townsend,
and Grant Bush, who was in Die Hard and License to Kill. And
anyway, then Willem Dafoe. Oh my God! And after he loses his weapon, he does this. I'm like, what is going on right now? That's acting? And poor Michael Paré, accent on the E. I'm sure he thought this was going to be his big ticket. He was going to be a superstar. It was his ticket to Nowheresville. No, I looked him up on Wikipedia. He actually has worked as an actor for the last 40 years. Good for him. But he is awful. He is awful in this movie. Right. Eddie and the Cruisers was a big one too, right?
Yeah, also, that was the one Walter Hill saw him in.
Right.
And was like, that's who we're going to cast.
Also a cult movie. of a sort. But he's terrible in this movie. And Diane Lane, also terrible. Geez, tonight is what it means to be young. That's not her singing, right?
No.
Somebody else singing.
Yeah.
And the whole movie for me, I'm glad you love it, Joel, but it was just so awkward. The whole thing was so awkward. I'll give it 2 stars. I recognize one song, which, as it happens, was the first song that Anthony and I ever danced to. I Can Dream About You.
One bad stud.
And that's all I have to say.
I had no memory of I Can Dream About You coming from this movie. I mean,
Yeah, me either.
Because that was a huge hit. I loved that song. And when they started singing, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. And this was obviously the movie version was not the guy who made it a hit.
Dan Hartman.
Yeah.
Dan Hartman. And who was a gay, by the way.
He also died at 52.
Yeah.
Heart attack, I think.
Oh.
You know, drugs. And then yeah, but in the movie it's sung by the black group, whoever they happen to be. What are they called?
The Shirelles.
Well,
Not.
something like that, though. What was it?
Sorrels.
Like
Sorrel.
mushrooms. I was thinking.
Sorrel. Okay. Sorrel. Okay, that's all I got. Mark G, you said you kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll start off by saying, Joel, I did enjoy it, but I'm gonna rip it up a bit too here.
That's fine.
This was a 1984 movie that I was not aware of, which is very unusual, especially in 1984, the year of all the best movies that came out. To me, this was very typical 80s fare. This was I've seen a bunch of movies similar in different ways, but kind of weird and whatnot. The opening song went on too long for me. It was like the whole song. It was just too much. And also later on, I guess at the closing, I guess, and that tied it together, but it was, all right, it's not a music video, I was
they were trying to be a musical of sorts, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it say in the beginning? It's a
rock and roll fable.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. So you needed the rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's where Gene Simon comes in.
I cracked up when we first get introduced to Michael Paré. He destroys that diner way more than those punks were going to do. The dialogue and the delivery of said dialogue was painful in parts. Rick Moranis, as you said, Frank, and Rick Rossovich as a tough guy cop. I've seen better acting. I don't know. It was, some of that was bad. And Rick Moranis can act. I don't know. It was, some of it was painful. Joel, I know you're a fan of Clue, Uncle Buck, Greatest American Hero, and Suspenders, but that's not a reason to make us watch this movie. There's a reference to all that. I'm sure Joel knows, obviously. But...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. And that's the only way. Greatest American Hero is the only place I knew Michael Paré from. I grew up on that show. So I was like, who is this guy? I know this guy from somewhere. And sure enough, boom.
Yeah.
I love Greatest American Hero. Who was he in that show?
He was the kid. He was the, so what's his name?
William Catt.
William Catt was the teacher, and he had a group of students.
Oh.
And Michael Paré was like the lead tough guy punk, and Rhonda, yeah, was Faye Grant or whatever that went on to do V.
Right.
Those were the two. Those two I always associate with Greatest American Hero. Willem Dafoe, really, even as a young man, he has just an evil face. He really just has a bizarre look to him.
I think it's the teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot how old cars looked in 1984. That looked like the 60s to me. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh, but I guess it was supposed to be the 50s. Is that why?
It was right. I think I read that you had some people who were modern or leads, and then everybody else was 50. So it was crazy because it starts with that thing similar to A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far Away. Joel, what is it that it's at?
Another Time, Another Place.
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that because I did not get that.
As just to bring it to the MCU, it's an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
There you go. And yeah, Michael Paré, to me, he sounds a bit like Stallone, and that's fitting because I feel there was some similarities between this and First Blood and his character and Rambo. So I guess maybe that's why he was cast. But for me, I'm going 2.5 stars. I do like cheesy 80 movies, and this is definitely one of them.
Annie, are you a fan of cheesy 80s movies?
Yeah, I could be, definitely.
Are you a fan of Streets of Fire?
Not really. No, it was, it started off okay. And Danny was like, oh, it's like a mix of Pat Benatar and Meatloaf kind of music video.
Yes.
So then he looked it up and yeah. So
I definitely heard Meatloaf. There was one song that I was like, wow, this sounds like Meatloaf.
Yeah, because Jim Steinman.
right. So yeah, but like Mark said, the delivery of the lines, the dialogue, some of it was just so cheesy, and it was just, I was like, oh, and the overall suspender leather thing, that what I was like, oh my God, like why would someone wear that? That was so bad, you
They
know.
thought they were being edgy and forward.
No, I'll tell you why when we get there.
All right.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I was like, oh, that's such a terrible look. I mean, it had cool action. I actually watched a little 20-minute short that you sent, and it was, you know, I guess I didn't think about it, but it was good. Like the effects, the filming, the smokiness, and and all of that. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah. So thanks for sending that. You know, that was kind of cool. But if I didn't see that, I wouldn't have thought of it. So yeah, it's a 2.5 because
Oh,
you know, it was watchable, but not again.
I actually started thinking, all right, it's probably a 3-star movie.
what?
Before I even saw it, I'm like, this would be a good thing.
But
Joel recommended it.
But then Danny looked it up, and there's a part 2, so that's on the queue to watch.
Wow.
All right. And
Let's see what I wrote. First of all, I think I need to go back 2 weeks and change my star ratings of Unfrosted. Because after watching this, that one did not deserve 1.5 stars. So that one,
Good.
I am mature and sophisticated. So that one should get 2 stars. Let me just start with that. Okay.
Hold on. Frank has to go back to his post
Right.
and change it now.
Joel, just as this was interesting, just as you were talking about great opening titles last week with, you know, Glengarry, this movie had them as well. I loved the scenes happening, and then it freezes, and then you get the title wipe, and it was all like raggedy looking. It was like 15 minutes of like, this is fabulous, meaning the titles.
Right.
Then I went right into Rick Moranis is so wrong.
wait a minute. So this would be great, because if it was an ad for the movie, it'd be fabulous titles. Amy Goldman.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say fabulous titles, or just say fabulous?
Right, that's true. That is very true.
Amy
Rick
Goldman.
Moranis is so wrong for this role that if the cliched one-dimensional douchebag, I hate those kind of characters. Nobody's like that, and he was so horrendous. As was Ed Begley Jr.'s hair. And I also don't want to live in a world where we have to see Ed Begley Jr. and Willem Dafoe in their 20s and 30s. They just look freaky to me. And then I wrote this before reading the whole long ago galaxy far, far away. Why the hell did our leads look like they were picked up in 1984 and thrown into 1959? Followed by that weird noise. And then I screenshot something interesting that this is the last thing I'll say, that Joel kind of alluded to. According to Walter Hill, the film's origins came out of a desire to make what he thought was a perfect film when he was a teenager, and put in all the things that he thought were great then, which I still have great affection for: custom cars, kissing in the rain, neon, trains at night, high-speed pursuit, rumbles, rock stars, motorcycles, jokes in tough situations, leather jackets, and questions of honor. So in that sense, this movie does have something for everyone.
Yeah.
The everyone really is a boy under 20.
A 14-year-old boy. Yeah.
There is nobody else I can imagine even remotely liking this movie. It was horrible. So this one gets the 1.5 stars.
Oh.
Now this obviously Joel picked this movie and thought we should watch it because it has, and this we've done so many times.
Frank, your audio is.
Oh, is it him? I thought it was me.
I think.
How funny! What happened to it?
It's
Static.
Staticky.
Staticky. Well, I don't know what to tell you about. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, and we've had so many movies like this where one of us had the nostalgia love for this particular movie, and that does change somewhat. But I love that Joel shared this with us because we could see a little bit into his psyche. His love of movies and where that came from. So, Joel, try and keep it brief, please.
3 stars.
I know you watched all the extras.
No. I because
watched the other movie. Tell us about that.
I actually did not watch the other movie. The other movie is a very the sequel is very hard to come by.
Walter Hill wasn't involved in that one?
Nope, not at all. When Walter Hill created this, he's coming off of 48 Hours. So Paramount is like, you can do whatever you want to do. And he was like, great, I don't want to work with you guys. I'm going to Universal and I'm taking this movie that I want to do with me.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought Paramount looked at the script and was like, nope, not this one.
Nope. They were willing to do it, and he was just like, I don't want to work with you people anymore. So he walked, and Universal picked it up, and they obviously made some changes in the fact that he originally thought that they would use songs from the 50s and 60s as the musical numbers, and the studio insisted that they have a soundtrack that had original songs. The reason the movie's called Streets of Fire is because originally they were using the Bruce Springsteen song at the end. And then they actually shot the ending with the Bruce Springsteen song, and then they couldn't get the rights to the Bruce Springsteen song. So Does
that clip still exist?
No. If it does, it hasn't been seen. So so they brought Jim Steinman back, who had already written the opening number, and said, hey, give us a closing number.
Give us the one good song in this movie.
Right.
Hey, I Can Dream About You.
That's the song I thought we were talking about. Sorry.
No. Dream About You was already there.
That is what it means to be young.
Yes.
There was another song at the end. I was a little familiar to me. That must be the one you mean.
That's the second Jim Steinman song in the movie. Tonight Is What It Means to Be Young. They actually thought about ending the movie with I Can Dream About You, but it just didn't work. They needed something bigger, so this is what they added. I've seen this movie a number of times over the years. I always find it fun. It is not a
good movie.
It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. And I think one of the things you have to do when you're watching a Walter Hill film, regardless of what kind of movie it is watch it as if it were a Western.
Didn't he do a Western?
He's done several Westerns over the years. The Long Riders is the big one.
The Long Riders.
But I think all of his films kind of fall into that category and can be viewed in that sense. And this is one of them. You can also look at it as something of a rehash of The Warriors, which he had done for Paramount in the late 70s, which is another film that has that, where is this? I mean, it's New York, but when in New York is it? Is where the Warriors
alternate timeline.
Yeah. And again, that was done purposefully here. He didn't want people knowing exactly when it took place. And I like that aspect.
Even though he was trying for that, it's very 1980s.
Oh yes. Yeah. This is probably, if you had to think of like 25 films that are very 80s, this would definitely be in that list because it's all the filmmaking techniques and the music video techniques and the aesthetic is all there. The acting's terrible. I think that's on purpose in a lot of spots, especially with the dialogue. Because if you look back at the movies he was trying to emulate from the 50s, they had shitty dialogue. They really,
but delivered by better actors.
Well, yes, but it was still shitty dialogue. Michael Pare and Diane Lane have like less than zero chemistry. And it
Less
just
than zero. Put that on your list for 2020.
exactly there.
But I like the little tidbit that it was first shopped to Tom Cruise.
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
cool.
Tom Cruise was who they originally wanted. He was just coming off of Risky Business, and they thought he'd be perfect. He probably would have been, because at that time Tom Cruise still had that boyish look. Michael Pare was only 25 at the time, and he looked like he was 35.
Yeah, wow.
And at 60 something, he still looks like he's like 40 something. So,
Not age.
Just like me.
yes. And after Tom Cruise, they were looking at Eric Roberts, but that also fell through. And then they saw
Yeah,
it.
nobody should be looking at Eric
No.
Roberts.
It's, to me, I just enjoy it. It's fun. I think that video that I sent you guys about it's the best 20 minutes of film ever. It's just that middle hour long section that's the problem. And I think that video makes a lot of very strong points, that it is a very good opening and a very good closing to the film. But everything in the middle is just kind of there. Ed Begley Jr. is kind of pointless as a character. He gives them information he already has. Where are they going? Oh, they took her to Torchy's. Well, we already knew that. Why are you telling us this? Why am I paying you money to tell us something we already knew? But there's a lot of little things like that in there. But that's it. Watching the documentaries was a lot of fun. I hadn't seen one of them. I hadn't seen before. Yeah. So 3 stars.
Was there anything of interest in the documentary?
There was some. So a lot of the film is shot at night, or it's supposed to be night. They actually covered, I think it was a 6-block radius of the Universal backlot to cover it with a tarp. I mean, they built this huge tarp to cover it so they could shoot all day long and control.
But it was nighttime.
That it was nighttime because Universal didn't want to pay to ship everybody to Chicago to shoot things. They shot for like 10 days in Chicago to get.
And to shoot it at night.
Yeah.
Time and a half.
But apparently
it's a terrible day for night, which looks so bad.
Right. So they, when they were putting the tarp over everything, everybody went to watch. And they're like, oh, it's this magnificent thing where everybody's up there and they're laying it out and they're fastening it down. And they looked down the street and there was like a brisk wind had started coming up and they could see the tarp starting to go like this. And the wave just kept getting bigger and bigger until like some of the rigging people were like holding on for dear life. And they heard like what was a machine gun sound. It was like all the hooks were popping out of it. And it was, but they got it fixed. And, Walter Hill or the producers were arguing with the heads of Universal as to who was actually paying for this. Let's just say the movie paid for it, not the studio.
Right. How funny.
Yeah, so there were some interesting things like that. Annie had mentioned Willem Dafoe's pleather overalls. Apparently, the costume designer was looking for something that would reflect all the fire that was going on around him, and that's what she settled on. And the other thing is that you find interesting. I don't know if you noticed in the credits, but the costumes were also partially designed and inspired by Giorgio Armani.
Okay.
So there's that weird aspect to some of them where it's like, oh, here's a fashion designer who helped design some of this weird stuff.
Funny.
Joel, was this a box office success?
What do you think?
No.
No. No, it was not. Didn't win any awards. No.
Yeah.
If it had been a box office success, we would have had The Adventures of Tom Cody Book 2 and Book 3.
Yeah, right. He wanted a whole series, right?
Yeah, the intention was to do a trilogy featuring these characters. The other interesting thing was that originally McCoy, Amy Madigan's character, was named Mendez and was going to be played by Edward James Olmos. And Amy Madigan came in to audition for the part of Reva, Cody's sister. and had read the script and was like, I don't want to play Riva. I want to play Mendez. And she basically said to Walter Hill, I think Mendez should be a woman. And Walter.
So wait, I have a joke.
Okay.
So Edward James almost got the part.
Almost. But Walter Hill.
I think it did totally work with Amy Madigan, though.
She was the best part of the movie for me.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, Walter Hill was the person who made the decision with the script for Alien that Ripley should have been a woman and not a man. So you wouldn't have had that without him either. Yeah. So he went home, thought about it, was like, no, this makes sense. We'll change the name to McCoy, leave all the dialogue, and move on with our lives. So
yeah, that's
great. Also, that reminds me, I didn't think Deborah Van Valkenburg was too bad at all. I mean, I knew her, of course, from Too Close for Comfort. I was like, oh my god,
right.
And I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, no, she's fine. She was also in The Warriors, which Walter Hill directed. So she was kind of excited to be working with him again. So,
and you just reminded me that Whoopi Goldberg felt the same way, that she could play any part. So why wouldn't she play? And Jumping Jack Flash was actually written for a man, and she said, "No, you don't have to change any of it. I'm going to play that part, the lead part."
Yeah.
So.
It happens a lot of times. So,
Joel, you said they didn't change any of the dialogue, but I assume they added in the whole, you're not my type part.
Yes, that they changed, but
all right. So are we done? Sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Okay. Streets of Fire is not available. All right, you can rent it for. You can rent it for $3.99, and you can Fandango at home. Next week, Annie picked Goodfellas.
Oh, yay.
Great movie. And it's only $2.99 on Prime. I'm Frank Gaffney. Go watch a movie.
And also with you.